Hey, Timothy Squall did a great job in The King's Speech, and John Lithgow was amazing in The Crown. Well, let's see how Gary Oldman does. Hey everyone, welcome to the review, and here's my review for the movie Darkest Hour. Yes, Darkest Hour stars Gary Oldman, Kristin Scott Thomas, Stephen Dillane, Ben Mendelsohn, and Lily James. And this movie is directed by Wright, yes, the guy who gave us Atonement and Pride and Prejudice. Now he's giving us a movie about Winston Churchill. Yes, that's been done before, but still, Winston Churchill. Yes, the story of this movie is about Winston Churchill. Yes, this takes place during the heart of World War II, when Winston Churchill first goes into office as Prime Minister and stuff, and he has to deal with the tragedies of World War II and stuff. He has to lead and guide his people through this very dark age, and he also has to do like negotiations with Adolf Hitler and stuff. And yeah, this is basically about, it's not a biopic about Winston Churchill. This is just about Winston Churchill in office during one of the darkest times ever in our world, during World War II. And he had to do negotiations with Adolf Hitler to help save his people and stuff. And yeah, this is the story, and it has Gary Oldman. I fucking love Gary Oldman. Who doesn't fucking love Gary Oldman? The guy can do no wrong. And honestly, that is the biggest praise I can give this film. That is Gary fucking Oldman. Gary Oldman as Winston Churchill was mesmerizing in this film. He looked like Winston Churchill. He acted like Winston Churchill. He actually was Winston Churchill. I felt like I was watching Churchill in this film. And again, other actors have played Winston Churchill before. The only ones that come to mind, there's other actors, but Timothy Squall in King's Speech was really good. And even just like in this past few years, as John Lithgow has been playing Winston Churchill in The Crown. Amazing show. He's fantastic. He is so good. And I never thought anyone could play a better Winston Churchill than John Lithgow, but Gary Oldman just proves otherwise. Gary Oldman is amazing in this film. He is definitely going to get an Oscar nomination for Best Actor this year, this coming Oscar season. He's absolutely fantastic. Again, his voice, his performance, his drive, his range, he just has so much depth in this film, and he's absolutely fantastic in this movie. He gives an A-game performance, A-plus performance. He is so freaking good in this movie. Absolutely loved it. His performance is almost as good as Colin Firth's performance in The King's Speech as Bertie, King George V. He is so fucking good in this movie. And that might also be a negative because he is just so good in this movie. He just overshadows everyone else in this film. They're all good too, like Kristin Scott Thomas, Stephen Dillane, Ben Mendelsohn, Lily James. They're all in this movie and they all give good performances, but they're just all overshadowed by Gary Oldman's phenomenal performance. They're subpar compared to Gary Oldman because he is so goddamn good in this movie. His performance is the biggest praise you could ever give this film is Gary Oldman and how amazing he is in this film. He is so goddamn good. Everyone else is good, but they're almost like crap compared to Gary Oldman, but he's fantastic. Also, what's good? The story. It's a very interesting story. If you are a war buff or a history buff, and you're fascinated with stories about the World War II and stuff. I know there's been a lot of movies about it, but this is a fascinating story. It's not like a straight action film. This is a dramatic political thriller. This is during the darkest times of World War II and what all the stuff Winston Churchill had to do when he was in power, when he was in office during this time and stuff, the negotiations he had to do, what his people were trying to make him do and stuff. He had to do some really shady stuff too, help save his people, and it was all for the good of the country and stuff. And I absolutely found it fascinating. There was a lot of stuff that I learned about this movie that I never knew about. I like history and stuff, but I'm not like the hugest history buff, so I love watching historical movies, so I get to learn more about these historical icons, these leaders and stuff, and what they did for their country and stuff. And it was fascinating what Churchill had to do during this time period. No spoilers, but if you know the history, you will know exactly what he did and stuff, and it was fascinating to watch, and this movie was a very, very true story. It was very loyal to the story, and yeah, it doesn't have a lot of like Hollywoodisms in this movie, like, you know, an intense third act and stuff, or a chase scene and everything. They don't use verisimilitude in this film. They don't use the appearance of truth. They actually just try to tell you the truth. They just tell you a real story, and it's very well done, and it's very compelling, and it's very thrilling, and very edgy at times, and incredibly dark. It's called Darkest Hour, so of course it's a dark goddamn film. And it's also a well-edited film. The editing was very sharp in this film. Nothing very choppy, no quick cuts and stuff. The cinematography was nice and smooth. Had a good score, very dark score. Really set the tone very well for the film. And yeah, it was a very well-acted and very compelling political thriller. And if you love political films, I think you will absolutely adore this film. And I thought Joe Wright did a very good job directing it. What are the nitpicks? Again, the supporting cast, as good as they all are, they are just overshadowed by Gary Oldman. They just couldn't keep up with him. He was just so good, they couldn't keep up the quality of acting. And it's not their fault, because Gary Oldman's an amazing powerhouse actor, but you just couldn't get invested with them as much, because anytime they don't show Gary Oldman, you just don't give a shit, because you just want to go back to Gary Oldman, because he's that fucking good in this movie. Also, there's some pretty dull moments. I don't want to say slow moments, just moments that weren't needed in the film. There's just moments I'm just like, oh, okay, get to the root of the story, get to the root of the plot. There's just some moments in this movie I'm just like, oh, okay, that's not very interesting. Go back to the good shit. But those are my only nitpicks. This is a very solid flick, and it's a really interesting story about Winston Churchill during World War II and what he had to do during the darkest hour. And it was absolutely compelling and really riveting. A damn good film. I can definitely see this movie getting nominated for multiple Academy Awards, especially Gary Oldman. And yeah, I highly recommend Darkest Hour. It's a fantastic film. And yeah, on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm going to give the movie Darkest Hour an 8.8 out of 10. So yeah, these Oscar contender films, I've been knocking it out of the park lately. So yeah, Lady Bird, 3 Billboards Outside of Ebbing, Missouri, and now Darkest Hour. That's 3 for 3 for these Oscar sort of films, so keep it going. So yeah, that was my review for the movie Darkest Hour. So in the comment section below, please tell me, what is your favorite Gary Oldman performance? Not movie. Favorite Gary Oldman performance. Haha. It made you think there for a little bit. Yeah, my favorite performance is, it's a weird choice, but I would have to go with Drexel from True Romance. That is still my favorite performance. He's playing a guy, basically a white guy thinking he's a black dude and stuff. You'll never see Gary Oldman ever play that ever in your life, so favorite performance for me. But yeah, what is your favorite performance by Gary Oldman? Comment below, let me know. And as always for this video, please like, subscribe to this channel, and join the dark side.